Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Destiny 2 video. Today I want to talk about the new Guardian Games Scout Rifle Taraxippos. There's a couple big reasons I want to talk about it. A, it is the only Strand Scout Rifle in the game. B, it is a 200 RPM Scout Rifle, which are usually pretty good. And C, there are actually some really cool and unique perk combos on this thing that I think are worth talking about. Before we get started, just like always, I'll have chapters down below if there's a specific section of the video you just want to see. Like and subscribe are always greatly appreciated if you like what I do, and my Twitch is down below where a lot of the gameplay was streamed, and I'm going to be grinding Guardian games for the next few weeks as well. So if you want to check that out, feel free to click on that link below. Starting with how to get Taraxippos, it can drop from Guardian Games metal deposits, as well as the weekly reward chests behind Eva Levante and the Tower. Some of those chests can also provide upgraded versions of the rewards, such as ones that drop Masterwork and some that have extra selectable perks. I also got a ton of them just from depositing platinum medals doing the contender card. Currently, at the time of this video, there is a platinum medal farm on Neomuna using the legendary version of the Breakneck campaign mission. Get to the section with the destructible door, use your rally flag, and then kill everything in the room except the wyvern and let the wyvern kill you. Rinse and repeat at this section. Remember, the rally flag is free because it is a campaign flag. Remember to read your contender card before starting the farm as well, just because you can match your weapons and subclass to the elements given for bonus progress, and that'll speed up the process significantly. Now that we've talked about how to get it, let's look at the stats on Taraxippos. So basically, it's going to be a lightweight frame Strand Scout Rifle, and currently it's the only Strand Scout in the game. Remember, lightweight frames are our 200 RPMs. And since it's an Obalon weapon, a lot of comparisons are definitely going to be immediately made to Hung Jury. However, do know they're actually decently different despite some initial similarities. Hung Jury is going to hit harder and have more range, seeing as it is a 180 RPM, and Taraxippos has much higher base handling, base reload speed, and obviously a faster fire rate, being 200 RPM. Taraxippos is going to behave much more similar to Nightwatch than Hung Jury if you've ever used much of Nightwatch. I think the perk combinations, however, are probably the best and most unique part about Taraxippos. There's some tried and true combos like Outlaw Kill Clip, which, while they may be a little outdated compared to some of today's better god rolls, is never a bad option, and at first glance a lot of the other perks may not be very attractive, though with a closer look you'll find some very interesting options. The two most basic combos that I'll talk about are Outlaw Kill Clip, Outlaw Hatchling. I think they're alright, definitely a little on the basic side, and in my personal opinion, I don't think Hatchling is actually too great in higher end content, so I put that one on the weaker side, but there's not a whole lot of complexity to those two rolls, not a whole lot to describe on them. I also think Focused Fury is a pretty decent damage perk, although also pretty straightforward. Although I don't like Focused Fury too much on primaries and PVE, it is definitely not bad, especially with something like Outlaw or 4 times the Charm, because you're going to be needing to get precision hits anyway. But for something a little more interesting on the PVE side of things, let's talk about some combos using Cascade Point and then some using Explosive Payload. I'm going to start with Cascade Point, because Cascade Point will let you get a huge buff to the fire rate after a kill or rapid precision hits with another weapon. For using it on a primary weapon like Taraxippos, I found that using it as a swap weapon was pretty solid, although a little tricky to get used to. What is nice is that once prepped, Cascade Point can sit for quite a while, so long as you don't swap to the weapon that it's active on. And I found that using a good ad-clearing special weapon like a wave-frame grenade launcher with either chain reaction or destabilizing rounds, or even a reservoir burst fusion rifle, actually felt pretty decent swapping to Cascade Point and then reloading and swapping back and just kind of getting into a good rhythm of things. For the other perk on a Cascade Point roll, I would probably say to go with Outlaw, because once you dump all your Cascade Point shots, it's going to feel like you're in slow motion for a couple seconds, and you're probably just going to want to reload, swap back, get another kill, and activate Cascade Point again. Outlaw can help you do that so long as you're able to get at least one precision kill before reloading, which is not too difficult to do with a Scout Rifle. As for the actual values on Cascade Point, it's going to give you what is effectively about a 40% damage buff during its duration, since it doesn't actually affect the fire rate stat on the weapon itself, and that usually would affect the damage output on a perk like Adagio, for example. What it does instead do is reduce the fire delay timer, which will allow you to fire much quicker while dealing the exact same damage per bullet as normal. My only problem with it is that you get a really fast burst of damage, then have to reload and swap back, because after its duration is up, Cascade Point does literally nothing, so it's going to be almost like you just don't have a damage perk there. It's also going to feel really awkward for the first few times you use it, because once that fire rate buff goes out, it's going to feel like you're in slow motion. And it's also going to feel like your damage output drops significantly once that buff runs out. However, something that fire rate buff could be good for is potential anti-champion capabilities in the future. You see, currently scouts are doing anti-unstoppable, which isn't too great with Cascade Point, but in the future, if we have anti-overload or anti-barrier scout, This quick fire rate buff could be really solid, seeing as you can sit on it for quite a bit of time before needing to actually use the buffed fire rate, as long as you don't switch to your scout. That'll allow you to get some damage in with your special weapon, and then as soon as the champion puts up its shield or starts getting ready to need an overload again, you can just dump the rounds into it really quickly, get a quick stun, and go back to using your special weapon. All in all, I did kind of like the Cascade point roll, but it felt like a gimmick still at the end of the day. A very fun gimmick, but I still don't think I'll seriously use it unless I can get a build going in the future. It'll definitely be something I feel like I need to play around with and maybe build around, and I'm not really sure that it's worth it for that reason. Then there's Explosive Payload, which I personally think is the best damage perk in its column here, because Explosive Payload will always convert half your damage into an explosive hit that ignores range fall off, and that portion gets an extra 30% damage in PVE. The way that works out is that Explosive Payload will give you about a 15% body shot damage increase in PVE, and the headshot damage will be increased, but it does vary based on the precision multiplier, which changes based on the weapon itself. I tested these perks here against the Servitor Lost Sector boss and the Cosmodrome, and while Lost Sector bosses usually aren't good testing targets, for a test like this one it'll work out just fine, since even though the numbers themselves are lower than they would be against normal red bar enemies, the precision multiplier and damage perk percentages given are consistent, and nothing here should be too different because we're using the same boss for every test. No variables exist here other than the perks used, and that's what we're testing. So for a baseline damage value here, you have a Taraxippos without explosive payload that'll hit this boss for 2264 per body and 3973 per crit. When you add in explosive payload, you're going to get 2605 damage per body and 4303 damage per crit. That is an approximate increase of 15%, which is consistent with our body shot value on explosive payload. The crit damage is an increase of about 8.5%, which isn't too crazy high, but isn't bad for a perk that doesn't require any activation whatsoever. Remember, explosive payload is always active. You could definitely pair this with something like Outlaw, 4th times the charm, for some ammo economy or reload speed, and use that as a solid roll if you like this scout. However, I do think there's another perk that is a little bit better if you can get used to it. And surprisingly, that perk is going to be Gutshot straight. See, Gutshot has been pretty okay since it was added and has some success I've seen on auto rifles after its buff, but as a whole it has been mostly ignored just because perks with a negative effect like Gutshot typically get ignored unless they are crazy powerful and able to use that crazy power level to justify their negative effects. Gutshot, however, just never felt like it was able to do that on a lot of weapon types. However, here there's some interesting things to think about. The main reason that I think it's good here is because you can get it in the third column and it's not competing with any other damage perks therefore. And Gutshot by itself does buff Taraxippos' body shot damage from 2264 to 2717, which is a 20% buff. But of course, since it doesn't change the headshot damage and scout rifles are precision weapons, it's still not worth it, right? Well, when you have explosive payload, even your crits have a portion of their damage registering as body shot damage. The perk has always worked this way. You'll still get the yellow crit number, but you also get a portion of it as a white body hit number. Gutshot does appear to be buffing that portion of the damage, therefore allowing it to stack with explosive payload even when hitting a critical shot, and buffing even some of the headshot damage. With explosive payload and Gutshot, keep in mind both perks that buff body shot damage, the body shot damage on Taraxippos is going to go from 2264 to 3125, which is about a 38% increase, and then the crit total was going from 3973 to 4595, which is about a 15.7% increase in crit damage. That's about the same as Frenzy, it's a tiny bit more. However, I do think Frenzy would probably be a little better because it doesn't have the negative effect that Gutshot does, and the reload speed and handling offered by Frenzy is awesome. However, Taraxippos obviously does not get Frenzy, so this is the next best thing. The penalty to aim assist on Gutshot is pretty noticeable, mostly at very, very long ranges against enemies with small precision hitboxes. Anytime I was fighting the Vex specifically, it felt like I was missing a ton of crits that I definitely should have been hitting. However, after about 20-30 minutes of playing with it, I was definitely getting better with hitting crits, adjusting to the difference in aim assist. If you manage to get a range master work, that can also help with some of the accuracy issues you may have when using this role. I do think this is probably the best PvE role, at least in my opinion, and it's definitely a unique one since this is the only weapon in the entire game currently dropping with both Gutshot and explosive payload as a possible combination. But I will say I don't think it's the role for absolutely everyone. However, if you get one to drop, take it for a test drive for about 30-ish minutes, decide if you like it, and if you do, you'll probably really, really like this role. For the 2 origin traits on Taraxippos, you have Classy Contender, which returns from last year's title SMG, and then you have the standard Omolon origin trait, just being Omolon Fluid Dynamics. Personally, I think they're both pretty alright. I think Classy Contender is awesome because it lets you get a lot more class ability energy back, but really, whichever one you like more I think is fine. For PvP, there are probably better people out there to give you a perk breakdown than myself, but I played a bunch of my Supremacy matches with one of these that had Offhand Strike and Keep Away trying to do a Scout Rifle bounty, and that actually allowed Taraxippos to do pretty well, I felt, because it had a lot more range than a 200 RPM Scout typically does, and it felt like it was outranging pretty much everybody else that was using a Taraxippos, which I felt was really nice for long maps like Widow's Court or Disjunction. And I know scouts aren't anything crazy in PvP as far as I'm aware. Like I said, I am not a crazy good PvP player or anything. There's definitely somebody out there that would be better knowledgeable on it than myself, but I felt like it was pretty decent as far as PvP scouts go. I would definitely throw it on again just to have some fun in a couple quick play games. However, that is all I have for y'all today. Thank you so much for watching if you've made it this far. Like and subscribe are always greatly appreciated. They go a very long way to helping me out if you liked the video. My Twitch is down below, and I always love hearing from y'all in the comments. Did you get a different god roll on Taraxippos? If so, let me know. I'll be happy to hear from y'all. Thank you, everybody. See y'all in the next one. Have a great day.